Welcome to Questions and Actor, Laurent Pitre. I'm your host, Laurent Pitre, and today I'm here with the amazing, the magnanimous, the megalomanous. I'm not making up words here. Welcome to the podcast. Who are you?
So I am John Thomas Gauthier. Un autre français, le gros.
Un
Another
autre
French Canadian.
français, another French Canadian. Thank you for translating live for our English speaking audience, which I hopefully will probably move most of the people. But anyways, hey, anybody's welcome here on this podcast. But welcome, John. It's been an absolute. Wait, do you go by John or John Thomas, or do you prefer people to go and say your full name, or do they go by Mr.
Honestly, I
Gauthier?
prefer Johnny.
Johnny, okay.
Johnny. Hell yeah.
Cool. That's your work name kind of thing? Like that's when
The
like
work
you
name,
arrive
the
on
work
set?
name is John Thomas Gauthier. On set,
Uh,
everyone calls me JT.
Jo-
Everyone else in the world calls me Johnny.
I love that. That's beautiful. Well, I think there's a lot in a name. So let's bring us back to the origin of your name, but also the origin of you. Tell me about where did you begin? Like who were your parents? Where did you decide to incarnate on planet Earth? And tell us
Mhm.
about that beginning moments of, you know, John Thomas Gauthier discovering what it is to be a human being.
Discovering who he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was born and raised in Ottawa, so Ottawa, Ontario, the capital of Canada. And as I've said in previous podcasts and all that kind of thing, Ottawa's got a great foundation for the arts, but when I was growing up, it was predominantly theater. So we've got a great theater program in Ottawa. There's the NAC, there's the Ottawa Little Theater. And when I was growing up in the 80s and the 90s, it was, you know, nothing being shot in Ottawa was necessarily a big Hollywood production. Now there's lots going on.
Mhm.
But when I was coming up, generally it was either theater or Hallmark. And based on the amount of ink that I decided to get, I don't get too many auditions for Hallmark. So, born and raised in Ottawa, transplanted to Toronto in 2017, where I chose to follow my passion and pursue my acting career and take it seriously. But my roots are firmly grounded in Ottawa. That's where I discovered my creative spark, my passion for performing, my love of all things arts, and my absolute obsession with film. Watched a lot of movies with my dad growing up. My dad's kind of a stoic, quiet guy, but very much like myself, film makes him feel and film makes me feel. So I remember, we had a thing every Sunday night. We would watch Star Trek: The Next Generation, and then we'd
Wow.
watch The Simpsons after. So two very contrasting programs, but it was kind of our thing. And one of my dad's favorite movies is Last of the Mohicans with Daniel Day-Lewis, and I really started watching a lot of really good cinema at quite a young age and really appreciating the depth of what performers can do, and not just the storytelling, but the way that they evoke emotion in the characters that they're portraying and they're playing, and compiling that with my love to make people laugh. It was inevitable that I would end up on a stage somewhere. And sure enough, doing high school plays and middle school plays and small stage theater really, was enough to satiate me. But when I came into my own in my late 20s, a decision had to be made. And that was, if I'm going to take this thing seriously, that I do need a bigger stage or a bigger pond, and Toronto seemed like it was the right fit, and here we are.
Whoa, wow. Well, yeah, it seems like it was just that story. Oh, thank you. It's like a beautiful synopsis of how you got to Toronto. But it seems like it was fast. Yet those are quite a few years from like being born to then. So tell
Yeah.
me a bit about that. Like go into
Yeah.
like the beginnings. Like you talked about that creative spark. Can you remember what that creative spark was?
Absolutely. I've always enjoyed making people laugh, primarily. Entertaining people is, I think, the ultimate goal, but there's something very special about making people laugh, making them feel good. And when I was very young, I would do silly sound effects or silly voices. And at a very young age, I had two very supportive fans. And one of my most supportive fans was my grandmother. And I would
Oh.
practice all my impressions and all my funny voices. And whether they were terrible or whether they were great, my grandmother, bless her soul, would always laugh and always encourage me. And she gave me a lot of confidence, just to kind of be my weird self. And I also was very, very fortunate to have enough to have a very supportive English teacher in grade 6. His name was Mr. Donlin. And do you remember when you're growing up in elementary school, and if you're reading a novel in class, you go down the row and everyone reads a paragraph, and like that's how you practice your reading skills. So whenever we would be reading a novel, I would read the characters' voices in a special voice, in doing an impression or what I felt the character would sound like. Or if a door was opening, I would say, "And the door open," and do a sound
Wow.
effect for the creaking door and stuff like that. And, some of the kids in class would laugh or, he's too much or whatever. But Mr. Donlin would be very, very supportive and very encouraging. Like, what was that sound? Do that again. Like, no, no, stand
Wow.
up, express yourself. And he was another person in my life from a very young age that gave me a lot of confidence to just be myself, express myself, be weird, stand out, try things. So I was fortunate enough to have some people in my corner to kind of support me in my weird little artistic self. And
Mhm.
that gave me the confidence to join school plays and take a stab at things like that. And, writing little movies with my cousins and
Mm.
borrowing my dad's big over the shoulder VHS camcorder. You actually had to put a
Whoa.
VHS tape into it.
So
That's
cool.
how old those things were, and doing little things like that. And you know you're saying it was a slow process, but it was a quick process because
Mm.
for a long time I didn't do anything artistic. When I finished high school, my last play was in grade 12, let's say, and I took a break because life happened. I had
Yeah.
to, I left my parents' house. I needed to work. I needed to support myself. So I joined the family business. Was my grandfather owned a pub in Ottawa, an Irish pub.
Wow.
And he was one of the most impressive performers I have ever known. He was a musician, stand-up comic, an orator, a bartender, a bouncer. He
Wow.
had such a commanding presence that when he was on stage, we would do live music, live Irish music every Friday and Saturday.
Mhm.
And he would MC the night. So he would be telling jokes in between sets or telling stories. And for better or for worse, when Des was on stage, you had to listen. So,
Mm.
it's a bar, everyone's drinking, everyone's playing pool, everyone's having a good time. But when Des is on stage, everyone shut up, focus, and listen to
Wow.
Des. So he was very commanding in that sense. And I can remember this was probably, I was 19 at the time, watching him perform and the commanding presence that he had. And while I was no longer on stage per se, I learned a lot about how to command a room.
Mm.
A really important thing is kind of a social radar, knowing who you can talk to about what, when a
Mm.
good time to interject, when a good time to be funny, when a good time to be serious. Really understanding, I don't want to say how to manipulate emotions, but how to kind of play into people's emotions
Mm.
and figure out what boundaries you can push and how
Mm.
far you can delve and how far you can push the envelope. And unbeknownst to me, bartending for, at the family pub and then later on throughout the years, like, I mean, I still bartend a couple of nights a week. The radar that a bartender has is so applicable to the acting world that I'm so thankful that I kind of fell into bartending and I fell into hospitality when I did, because a lot of the patience, the social radar, the understanding, the ability to pivot and
Mhm.
improv at the drop of a hat, I owe to bartending and I owe to
Wow.
hospitality, because, you'll be sitting behind a bar as a bartender. Let's say you have 5 people in front of you sitting and having a night. One person you can talk to about politics.
Mhm.
One person you can talk to about relationship advice. One
Mhm.
person you can talk to about sports. And one person you can talk to, about art. And you have to be able to jump and switch and move and know how far you can push and when to pull back, and
Mm.
who you can swear in front of, who you have to be very prim and proper with. And learning all these things, I've applied that to so many of my roles and
Mm,
so many of my auditions. You know, when you meet a casting director, and some of them would love to shake your hand, and some of them just want to get right to the shoot, and
yeah.
some of them love to give notes, and some of them are very harsh with their feedback.
Mm,
The radar is invaluable, and I owe a lot of that to the hospitality and the family business, and I did
mm,
carry that for many years before I eventually said, I'm sick of the bartending. I want to return to stage. I want to
mm,
return to film. You know, I'm entering my late 20s, early 30s at this point, and it's now or never for me
mhm,
to leave Ottawa. I've outgrown this
mm,
city. And if I'm going to take a serious shot at film and a film career, I need to go to Toronto. So we're
wow.
fast forwarding from 18 to about 27, 28
Yeah,
before I decided to get back into film and theater. And
wow.
then from 27, 28 to about 33 when I finally pulled the trigger and made the jump to Toronto. So it was a very quick process, but in a very slow manner, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
absolutely. Yeah, I thank you so much for going into detail because it gave me so many new questions too, but realizations, and I'm so happy to hear that because I think a lot of listeners too maybe think there's like a false belief in acting that like there's like a good time or right time to kind of go,
Hmm.
or that training needs to look a certain way, right? That like you need to go to a theater school or a film school or study a thing. But it sounds like to me like you learned the craft of acting and you put in the 10,000 hours in a way that is just unconventional, but that's yours and that has led you to be the unique performer and artist that you are, of being able to, you know, react in the moment to people in a bar is exactly like sometimes the chaos and craziness that happens live on stage or in a movie, right? Like
Hmm.
being able to understand that character doesn't come out of like all the time out of like habits or like a kind of way that the person acts, but rather it's in response to other people too, right? You adapt to what you want out of the other person. You were working on objective work even before you maybe knew what the, you know, objective, super objective, all that kind of actor speak. It sounds like you were already learning that even by watching like the master class of your grandfather.
Hmm.
So that's really cool. And I really love that because I also encourage a lot of actors to get real jobs. And not
We
that
have to,
acting
man.
isn't a real job, but get real jobs. One, for survival, because there's nothing worse than a starving artist. I think you need to be a thriving, you know, artist in both in like artistically, but also financially. Like you do need like a good padding that you can go into rooms and not be like, I need this to work or else I'm going to be broke or die or whatever. You need to come
Hmm.
in with like, I don't really need this. Like I have a great life. Like
Yeah.
take it or leave it kind of energy. So it's cool to hear that you've had that and you continue to sort of, even though it's not, you are now a full-time actor, you still keep it to like us in a sense it's still your gym. And even, you
Hmm.
know, I'd love to talk to you about the gym. Like so tell me about also, because you're an athletic performer, you're a physical sort of person. Did that also start while you were in the bar life to get to that like kind of bouncer level of stature, or tell me about how, yeah, fitness started incorporating itself into your process as a person and as an artist?
Hmm. So, I mean, thank you. Great question. And I mean, I want to circle back real quickly
Yeah,
on something that
please.
you said when you were saying, you know, it's important for an actor to have a job and not go into a room with that desperation. I think a lot of young actors need to understand the difference between hunger and desperation. And it's great
Mm,
to be hungry for the job and to lay it all out there for an audition and really connect and you know, really show who you are and what you can do. But I'm about 90% sure it was Harrison Ford who gave an interview years ago about his breakout success. And he was saying the same thing. He's just like, I went into the room and I don't need this, guys. Like, I'm making good money. I got a life. I'm okay. I would love to do this. I'll give it my all. I'm very happy to be here. But at the end of the day, like, I'm not starving. I'm not, you know, desperate for this. I'm hungry for it, but I'm not desperate for it. So I think that's a very good uh, point to make the difference on that. But to come back to what you were saying about fitness and the gym, it really started for me. I was around probably, let's say, 27, where I started training. I was always a very tall, lanky, skinny guy. And it was a big point of insecurity, to the
Mm.
point where I remember being in high school and I wouldn't wear shorts. I'd wear baggy jeans. And
Ah.
you remember the old like Andre Agassi tennis wristbands, the
Yeah,
long
yeah,
ones.
yeah, yeah.
Like I was so embarrassed of my skinny wrists that I would wear
Oh,
long wristbands or big thick strap leather watches, and I was very insecure with my body.
wow.
It came to a point where like everything, we have to take responsibility for ourselves at some point, and I could continue to be insecure or be ashamed, or I could do something about it. So started working out, made all the mistakes that a young lifter does, which is I'm only going to work on arms and chest and shoulders. I'm not going to do back. I'm not going to do
No
legs. And of
leg day,
course,
yeah.
that ridiculous. You end up looking like a triangle,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a
yeah.
Dorito. And it's just, making all these mistakes. I'm still learning today. I've been training for about 15 years, but as I kind of grew this body and grew the confidence, I really started becoming comfortable with who I wanted to be, not just as a performer, but as a visual. I had an idea of where I wanted to go, and I'd always loved tattoos. I'd always loved long hair. I'd always loved like the Viking look. So, I mean, if
Mhm.
you look at a picture of me from 10, 15 years ago, there's no beard. It's very, very short, little faux hawk spiked hair, no tattoos. And I slowly built the person who I truly believe I was meant to be while maintaining the little boy still inside me. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I've still got my insecurities. I've still got my fears. As actors, we call it imposter syndrome. Do I really belong here? Um, but I think it's important that I at the very least took the chance and put in the effort to, I don't want to say manifest, but to build the person and the performer that I wanted to be. Do I want to be some big action star? No, not really. My first love is still comedy.
Mm.
But by doing these big guy, tough guy roles, getting myself into the rooms and putting myself into a proverbially much smaller pond,
Mhm.
where there could be 400 or 500 guys auditioning for a job where it's open ethnicity, 6 feet, short brown hair, blue eyes, no tattoos. There's tons and tons of guys going out for those gigs. Whereas for me, using the already advantage that I had being 6'5", okay, well, I've got the height. Okay, what
Mhm.
about 6'5" and covered in tattoos? What about 6'5" covered in tattoos and 240 pounds? What about 6'5"
Mm.
covered in tattoos, 240 pounds, long hair and a beard? By making the pool smaller and more niche, there's a much tougher selection process and a much smaller pool. So I'm going up
Mm.
against, I know the guys that I'm going up against for most of
Yeah.
these roles because
Mhm.
there's a dozen of us in the GTA.
Mm. Mhm.
There's a guy in my agency in Boomer Phillips, and him and
Mhm.
I we're stark contrast. Shout out to Boomer. I love Boomer. He's a really big, muscular guy, white guy, shaved head, no beard, no tattoos. So it's
Ah.
like, do you want, big bodybuilder or do you want big biker? You've got the, two sides of the
Vanilla
coin.
or chocolate, but
Yeah,
it's still ice cream
literally.
kinda
Or
thing.
bring us both
Okay.
in for a swirl. Like,
Ah, wow, yeah.
yeah, so it's building a character, building an image, and using it to my advantage. And what I've really tried to do in the last couple of years is when I've solidified this image, people are aware of what I can do, is now with my own production company, making our own movies, our own TV shows, our own stuff. I can now choose to write, produce, direct, create my own comedies and stuff like that to showcase what I love to do versus what I can do. So
Mm.
now more doors are opening for comedy projects and for dramatic roles. And it's not just, tough guy, Viking, biker, villain. I have, my fingers in more pockets, so to speak, because I've created my own opportunities while relying and respecting my foundation.
Mm, very cool. I love that. Tell me, so okay, yeah, I love it. We're kind of bouncing between time periods, going up and down and up and
I'm
down.
all over the place. I
But I
apologize
no,
for
I
that, but
like that. No, I like that. But before we go back into your current process of booking work, but also creating your own work to break I love that this idea of typecasting, like you know your typecast, and now you're going to expand it because you also have creative control with your company, which I believe is Screaming Goat Films. Yes,
Nailed it.
shout out. Okay, sweet. And so let's talk about the beginnings in Toronto when you made your debut. How was that? What were your feelings? What were the main events that sort of got the ball rolling for you?
It was, I mean, every actor's different. I would consider myself extremely lucky for the experiences and the guidance and the luck that I've had. I mean, a lot of people say there's no such thing as luck. Luck is when, preparation meets timing kind of thing. But when I came to Toronto, I got here in August 2017, got into my condo in September 2017, and immediately, I didn't know anyone here. I didn't know any fellow actors here. I had never really acted. In Ottawa, I did, I think, like I said, some small stage theater and maybe some extra work,
Okay.
background work on a
Wow.
couple of very small films. So I had no idea where to start. So I went on to the Facebook, when people were still using it,
The
and
Facebook
started
and calling
joining
it the Facebook.
the Facebook. Yeah, exactly. So joined, Powerhouse Casting, Jigsaw
Mm,
Casting, little casting, local Toronto actors looking for work, joined these little Facebook groups. And one of the groups that I mentioned, so Jigsaw Casting, they do a lot of casting for non-union commercials. And there was a posting for a Smirnoff ad, a non-union commercial, a one-day shoot for a good payout. And I was like, sure, I'll audition for this. And took my own kind of headshot, sent in my own audition, went in for the callback. They were like, are you Greek? You look Greek. And I was like, I'm whatever you want me to be. Like, just if I have the job, sure. Don't ask me to do a Greek accent. I'm not there yet. But whatever
uh,
you think I look like, sure, I'm
I'm
that.
that. Hmm.
Ended up booking it. It was a great first experience on set. Once again, because of the social radar and the ability of a bartender to think on the feet, the role was for a bartender, so I was very comfortable in that
Wow.
element. And I ad-libbed a line during the interview process of the commercial, and they were like, "That was great. Where'd you come up with that?" And I was just like, "Well, it's just off the top of my head," and it landed well. The ad-lib line made it into the commercial,
Nice.
and I had a really good experience, really good feeling on set. It was a fantastic day. And then the casting director from Jigsaw, she reached out to me. She said, "Hey, I heard you did a great job on set. Um, are you looking for an agent?" I said, "Of course, I'm looking for anything at this point." She's like, "I may have someone for you if you'd like to meet her. She doesn't have anyone like you on her roster yet." I said, "Sure." So it was Terry Ritter from Ritter Talent Agency, who I'm still with, and I absolutely adore this woman. She's like the cool aunt. She's very soft but very firm. If I send in a tape and it's great, she'll tell me it's great. If I send in a tape and it's not great, she'll tell me it's not great and tell me to redo it and redo it
Mm,
now. So
hmm.
Terry's cool like that. And I had a meeting with Terry when she still had her office downtown here in Toronto. She's like, "I don't have any Vikings on my roster. You seem like a good guy. You're non-union. I don't really take on non-union, but we'll see where this goes. I'll give you a
Wow.
shot." And because of the choices I made to build this look and not paint myself into a corner, but to embrace the niche,
Hmm.
I was very fortunate to book Boom Boom Boom, get into the union within about a year. I
Whoa.
booked my first union job was it was an OLG ad. Then I booked it was a CBC Gem web series called Bit Players with Chris Siddiqui and I believe it was Nigel Brown. And then I booked The Boys, and that was my
Mm,
third union credit to kind of get me into the union full on. And from there, I never looked back. And it's
wow.
gone from actor to principal to large principal. And then just recently, I completed my first guest star role, and I'm doing recurring role on Sheriff Country. My
Wow.
character is being brought back for the second season of Brilliant Minds. I
Wow.
did a recurring on Fubar with Schwarzenegger, so it's been very, very good. And I don't want to discredit my luck, but there's a big part of me that is really, really confident and sure about the preparation that I chose to make about building my body, building my brand, building my look, and
Mm,
building my skill set has gotten me to where I need to be and has
mhm.
set me up for my success in the future based on the decisions I've made over the last 10 years, not even on camera.
Wow. Wow. That's beautiful. Maybe like, yeah, then with that, I'm so curious, like, were there any kind of people inspiring you when it came to like 10 years ago, like when you were making this choice to like make this kind of image or this kind of, yeah, this persona that you were going to end up fitting. And then, yeah, like you said, it puts you in a niche, but it's so specific that it actually helps you because, like you said, one of the things about acting that's challenging is like you have to stand out. And a lot of people are then taught through fear or through theater school to like take away your individuality and try to fit in and try to be cast. And yeah, you didn't go that way at all, right? You
No, not
went
at
like,
all. Yeah.
so tell me, what was the inspiration for that? And maybe what kind of advice would you have for someone, that wants to get started and wants to sort of embrace their individuality? Like, what would you recommend, or with that in mind?
That was a lot. Thank you very much. I think it's very important. I think a lot of younger, more inexperienced or fresher actors, let's say, like you said, are taught to not stifle themselves, but to just kind of toe the line. And while that may, get you looks and may get you cast in some smaller things, and it may build you a successful or somewhat successful career, I think you're doing a massive disservice to yourself if you're not taking those shots and really trying to stand out and be different. Um, I think it's so important to make an impression. And it's so much less about knowing your lines and hitting your marks, and so much more about making people remember you. And a lot of relationships I've made over the last decade, I've had a lot of fun on set and a lot of fun behind, in front of the camera. But when I walk around on a set, I really try and shake people's hands. I really try, like I said, make people laugh, make people's day a little bit easier. And whether that comes from the hospitality aspect or my background in hospitality, or whether that comes from me just refusing to subdue myself
Mm,
or my refusal to just fit in and toe the line,
hmm
I think people recognize that as much more genuine and it makes you a lot more memorable. You could have the entire 120-page script memorized, but
mm,
if you're not a memorable person and if you're not a good person, then you're just another actor.
mm,
You're another picture on the wall when they're doing the casting and that kind of thing. So I don't want to suggest to an actor to not take their training seriously because training is so important. It teaches us how to sharpen some tools. It teaches us how to step outside the box, maybe take on roles that we wouldn't normally do, and teaches you how to be more comfortable. But as an individual, I think it's so important to find not just what you're good at, but what you truly love to do as a performer and who you really love to be as a human being and to incorporate the two.
mm,
To go all the way back to what you were saying, like how did I find myself? Why did I create this persona?
hmm
How did I become this way? Who I am now at 41 years old is, I truly believe, looking back at the 10-year-old or 12-year-old, little John, being like, that's who I want to be. And it has nothing to do with my acting career. It has everything to do with the look, the size, the confidence, um, the generosity, that the happiness, the just the desire to be myself and not hide behind the baggy jeans and the big wristbands and the little spiky gelled hair that everybody else does. It was just a refusal to fit in and finally having the confidence to be unapologetically myself and taking that and applying that to my acting career. And I think that is so important for anyone trying to get into our industry and who wants to stand out. The importance of being yourself cannot be measured and it
mm,
cannot be it cannot be overvalued. I think it is so important to be yourself, find what, not just what you're good at, but find out who you are, embrace that, and use that to your advantage.
That's some deep life advice, too. This could be applied to actors just as much as any regular person trying to figure out how to navigate the chaos of this world. So tell me, what are maybe some experiences, roles, or things that you've had along the way as an actor or an artist that have given you like the deepest life lessons that have really affected your life?
Yeah, I had a very um, cathartic "this too shall pass" moment, and when I say that, there's a great roundtable episode with Tom Hanks. I think it's Tom Hanks, De Niro, Hoffman. There's a bunch of heavies in this conversation, and Tom Hanks himself was saying, when times are tough and you're not booking, you're not working, just remember this too shall pass. Like, you'll book again. And the same thing is like when you're on top of the world, you're booking back to back, you're pulling in millions, you're doing your dream roles. Remember, this too shall pass. So it's always going to be a roller coaster. And I got to see that in real time when I was working on a show a couple of years ago, and I was sitting in the green room with some other actors who were on the show. Some were low level guys like me. The couple were the leads and the heavies for the show. And the guest star for this episode of this TV show was a heavy. Like, this was a guy who was a series lead for a show that was on the air for 10 years. He was a Hollywood TV A-lister. And myself and this other actor, who was a mid-level guy like myself, were having a conversation that we were both working on this TV show. This is such a big show. This is so much fun. And we learned that we're both going to do the same movie as each
Mm.
other in 2 weeks. That
Oh,
was a movie
cool.
shooting in Sudbury. We're like, this is so great. We're here on this set, and then we're going to another set. This is awesome. And the guy who was a guest star, who was a Hollywood A-lister, he was listening and he said, wow, like, that's really great, guys. I wish I could work that much. This is the first thing I've booked in 18 months.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And this was like a creme de la creme,
Yeah.
top dollar guy. And it
Wow.
really, really hit me in that moment. It was just like, oh, the mortality of the Hollywood A-lister is a real thing.
Yeah.
Just because you're a household name does not guarantee you work. It does not
Hmm.
guarantee you continued, ongoing success.
Hmm.
And that's something that really, really hit me. And I really, really sit with that. So as actors, when we're not booking, whether it's haven't booked anything in a few months, or I haven't had an audition in a couple of months, or like, God, I haven't been on set in almost a year, we have that panic. We have that, am I not good enough? Am I being forgotten about? Am I ever going to book again? And going back to that experience, it really stuck with me to understand and accept that, this too shall pass. Stick with it. Some people don't book things for 18 months, two
Yeah.
years, 3 years. You could
Yeah.
be, Denzel Washington. That does not guarantee, maybe Denzel does, but for just about any actor in the business, there will come a time and come a point where you're not needed and you're not booking and you're not working. And, that's okay.
Hmm.
So that was
Absolutely.
probably the biggest thing that I got to see in real time in terms of a life lesson as an actor. And
Mm.
on other sets, I've been so fortunate to work with and work under some incredible directors, some incredible actors. And I think a lot of people need to understand, who are not actors, who are watching, this podcast, and who are looking at actors. Actors and acting is, an artistic profession, but it is just like any other job, in the sense that you're going to work with people that you love, and you're going to work with people that you do not love.
Mhm.
And there are people who have great work ethic and who are very happy to be there. And there
Mhm.
are certain people that are snobs or entitled, or who are drama queens, and you just look at these people and you're like, ah, I can't believe I got to put up with this jerk, or I got to put up with this person,
Uh-huh.
just like any other job. And I'll tell you one more quick story. I was working on another really, really big show. And this was the first time that a stunt coordinator ever gave me the reins. His name was Eric Bryson. And him and I had worked together in the Cayman Islands, and based on a budding social relationship, which is so important behind the scenes. When we got back to Toronto, he offered me a gig, and I said, "Sure, I'd love to come work on this show." And he handed me the reins. We walked in, he handed me my two stunt guys, and he said, "This is what the production wants to see for the fight. Hit these beats, have fun. The floor is yours." So I got to design and coordinate the fight scene, which
Whoa.
was a big honor. It was so much fun. I got to have a lot of fun with these guys, and we killed it. They were um these two stunt guys who were River and James, great guys, super talented, so much fun. And then we trained, we practiced, we did everything we needed to do. We got prepped, we showed the fight. Eric loved it, studio loved it. We got green lit. This is how the fight's going to go down. And we ended up shooting the fight scene on an overnight. We all love overnights. And we were on set for probably about 3 or 4 hours at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And the lead, so one of the guys who had James as his stunt,
Yeah.
his name was Casey, and super talented actor, great guy to work with. He wanted to do all of his own stunts, so him and I actually did the fight, and we
Wow.
had a great time. We were doing this for 2-3 hours, setting everything up. We were exhausted.
Of course.
And then the other guy, River, he was stunting for another actor. And he's a small guy. I'm 6'5", 240. River's probably 5'8" and 150. So he was getting
Right.
tossed around, and
Whoa.
he was taking, and he was doing his job, and he was doing it real well. Now, after roughhousing for 3-4 hours, the actor who River was stunting for showed up, walked on set, and all this young man had to do was, the fight was finished. I was laying on the ground because I got knocked out, and he has to hold on to me while I kick and thrash, essentially like he's choking me out.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's all he had to do. All he had to do was hold on. And we did 2 takes, maybe 3. And after the third one, keep in mind, we've all been working for hours at this point. We're all exhausted. After the second or third take, he looks at the director and says, "How many more do we got to do? Like, I don't know how much more I have." And it was just, the energy in that room just got
Yeah.
sucked out the window. It was
Ah.
just like, really, dude? Like, we've
Yeah.
been busting our ass for
Mm-hmm.
3-4 hours. It's like 4 in the morning at this point. We're
Yeah.
tired. Like, I've torn my suit twice. Like, makeup or wardrobes had to come in and refit me a couple of times because of all the thrashing and the fighting. And the privilege that you have to be making the money that you're making, as a series lead, and to come in and to just suck the energy out of the room,
Mm,
it was really disappointing.
mm,
And it was another one of those times where I was just like, wow, this really is just like any other job, where
mm,
there's some people that love to be here and want to be here and want to give everything they have. And some people, for whatever reason, maybe they're going through something, or maybe they're having an off day, or maybe this is just who they are, don't really give a crap. And it's just
mm-hmm.
another one of those things. It was a very stark reminder that, as artistic and creative as our career and our passion is, for a lot of people, it's just like any other job.
Absolutely. Yeah, sometimes it looks like people just fell into it, yeah, kind of thing, and they're like, "Why am I even here?" And you're like, "This is again like the main sort of lessons I'm pulling from that is like gratitude, right? That gratitude that you want to be grateful, and it sounds like you're the same in that way. I'm grateful for the work. I love to work. I love an audition. I love putting myself on stage or rehearsing something or writing something in the dark that no one's seeing, or putting out a podcast just for the fun of it, the passion. I did open mics with music and stand up, and I know I'm not a stand up comedian. I know I'm not a musician. I'm not John Lennon or anything like that, but I do know that there's something about putting yourself out there, doing the work that's fun, and I'm grateful for any kind of version of that. So it sounds like you are that kind of way, and it's tough when it gets to those kind of days where you're working many hours and it's very physical. But in those moments, you got to keep reminding yourself, especially if you're one of the lead roles or whatever, any role. You could be an extra. You got to be grateful for every minute you have there, because, like you said, it comes back to that first lesson: the this too shall pass. Like,
Hmm.
enjoy it, because it'll be over. You will not be a series lead for very long, or it could pass. Like, not maybe not even by a fault of your own, but it will.
Yep.
Everything passes. So
Yep.
it's good to enjoy the little moments, and even enjoy the moments where you're not on set, because now you have time to like do your other passions, be with your family, be with your friends, like focus on what you do have as opposed to what you feel like you're lacking. I think, and
Yeah.
I think that that's it sounds like you are that way, and I'm wondering if there are any things that you put into practice into your life to, put those things, or like wire your brain in that way. Are there certain like habits that you have, or kind of lifestyle things that you've chosen to really, continue that kind of way?
I think for me, I think particularly at my age now that I'm in my 40s, and living in Toronto is a big reminder of just how fleeting that money is, and just how we're talking about gratitude, how important it is to be grateful to get paid to play dress up. We get paid to play dress up.
Yeah, man. We're Mr.
How
Dress
can you
Ups.
not be grateful for that?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And if I'm walking around, you want to talk about day-to-day lessons and day-to-day gratitude. If I'm standing in line for a Timmy's coffee, or if I'm wandering the aisles of Winners looking
Mm,
for a cheap T-shirt,
mm-hmm.
the people that are working and living all around us, they may never have the same opportunities or have
Mm,
access to the things. We get paid to travel. There are times where we literally get paid to see the world.
yeah.
We're not even on set yet. We're put up in a nice hotel room, or we're getting paid to try on a shirt during our costume fitting, or we're getting paid to be driven to and from the airport. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the lack of gratitude for me, it just doesn't make sense,
Mm,
because, when you're a kid, when I grow up, I want to be this, I want to be that. And when you get to be the person that you said you wanted to be when you grow up, and you get to make money from it, how
mm,
can you not be grateful? I'm not going to say, don't have your tough days, don't have your frustrations. I'm not going to devalue anyone's strife or anyone's, troubles or trauma. But at the end of the day, when you are literally given an opportunity to make a living, and, at times a very lucrative living, not always, but at times a very lucrative living, to do something that you've dreamt of since you were a kid, you better be grateful.
mm,
So going back to this too shall pass, save your dollars, save your cents, do what you got to do to survive in this industry and survive in this city. But don't for a single day forget to count your blessings, at least
mm,
at one point during the day, and be thankful that not everyone has to be stuck behind a fast food counter for whatever minimum wage is now, 16 bucks an hour, or has to brave the winter cold at 2 or 3 in the morning when you want a Big Mac from McDonald's, and someone has to bring it to you. Like, those people are getting it done, those people are doing what they got to do to survive, and we get to sit here and we get paid to play dress up. So be grateful. I think it's so important to have your balance, have your tough days, have your down days, have your woe is me days. But don't for a second forget how lucky that we are to be able to have conversations like this with
mm-hmm.
fellow actors and fellow creators, and relish and embrace in the fact that we are doing what we've always wanted to do, and
Mm-hmm.
we can look back at our 6-year-old, 8-year-old self and be like, hey, buddy, you're doing it. And I remind myself of that constantly. And I think it's
Mm.
so important for people to do that.
Yeah, and just to hop on that point, though, I think I do want anybody who's listening to this who maybe not, who hasn't necessarily got those kinds of universal sort of rewards of like, I booked the thing and like I should be grateful, that I feel like for me and possibly for you, that you were grateful before. Like I started doing gratitude before like the big sort of things. I started
Hmm.
like you did to envisioning what it would be and believing in what I would become more than anybody else and then became the thing that I am now. Um like I started doing gratitude journaling in the morning and at night. I do that still. I started putting myself on tape every day because I love it. And to me, that is me doing it every day kind of thing. I'm a working actor every day. Um, but I also started doing the gym similar to you, like just to build that confidence. Like I go and do it every day, like in the morning, start my days off like that kind of thing. And I go to work wherever it's going to be, but I make sure I take care of the gratitude and like that sort of health kind of component. Cause yeah, that's the way you sort of remind it. And I think there's a beautiful thing about like you saying that allow yourself to have the woe is me moments too, because you should be grateful for them too, because like that woe is me is like where you connect with the character having a woe is me moment. Like they're all having woe is me, you know?
Hmm.
Movies aren't about things going well. They're about like characters going through the craziest, worst days of their lives. And so if you don't have an understanding of that and you just are always like it's like there's gratitude for the good and the bad. And then
Yeah.
it all just becomes a part of the journey, right?
Yeah. I think it's it should be all encompassing. There should be every aspect of humanity in your day-to-day life. It's, I really don't enjoy consistently negative people. I
Mm.
don't think it's necessary, but at the same time, another kind of person that bothers me is I call it toxic positivity,
Yes,
where
yes,
it's
pretending
just,
does nothing bad.
pretending that everything is great.
Mm,
Like, this was meant to happen. This is what it
yeah.
is. Manifesting everything, my pretties. Everything is awesome. You're exactly where you're meant to be, and all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
And as soon as that recording is done, and it's done, it's just like, it's just that's gotta suck it out of you. So
Uh-huh,
I'd
uh-huh.
rather just be honest.
Yeah.
I'd rather just be like, yeah, it's not always going to be great.
Mm.
Be thankful, like you said, be thankful for. Can I swear on here? Can I say shit?
Absolutely, we
Okay.
can be explicit. Shit, fuck, shit.
Be thankful for the shit, because if you weren't here, the shit wouldn't happen, kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
take it all, man. And like
yeah,
I said, like, to go back a bit, to hear an A-lister say, like, I haven't booked anything in 18 months, like, what the shit, guys? It's just like, whoa, like,
yeah.
dude, you got a mortgage to pay, you got kids, like, you're living in, Bel Air or Malibu, like, yeah, you're probably stressing about where your money is coming from.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah,
get it,
yeah.
dude. Like, that's brutal. That sucks. But that's all part of it. And I think that's part of the important part of being grateful and having gratitude, is understanding that that's all part of it, and that's part of the ride. So it's not always going to be bad. It's not always going to be good. It's going to be a mix of things. And if this is what you signed up for, which, if you want to be a working actor, this is what you signed up for. Prepare for it all, get ready for it all, and be grateful for it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm 100% on that train. Gratitude all the way, man. So
Yeah,
tell
man.
me about where you are now. Like, what are you most excited about? We're recording this right before 2026. You've had this year where you've done all these wonderful things, and you're pivoting towards like bigger and things. You've told me you have an American agent. So tell me about what are you like excited about that's happened this year, and what are you looking forward to in the coming year?
Yeah. So this year, like, talking about this too shall pass. This year, 2025, started out real slow, real bad. Like,
Uh-huh.
I booked an SOC, which, for those who don't know, is a silent on camera,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
in a short film in January 2025. And it was a lot of fun. It was a great
Hmm.
little
Yeah,
production,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but it was SOC. There wasn't much for me to do, and I didn't have anything. I had a couple auditions, and I had nothing else until late summer.
Okay.
So I probably went, 6, 7 months without a peep, with nothing. And I mean, having a year like that after a very successful 2024, I was like, did
Yeah.
people forget about me? Do they not want? Am I too big? Am I too small? Is there too much ink? Should I get some things changed?
Mm-hmm.
Should I shave my head? Having those moments where, those woe is me. And then, sure enough, at some point the faucet turned back on, and I had some great auditions, some great bookings, and finished the year extremely strong. So for the acting side of things, I've got a really, really fun year coming up in 2026. So I've got a fun little recurring role in Sheriff Country. Like I said, a character on Brilliant Minds on NBC that was in season one. They're bringing back for season two. I shot my first guest star role, which was on a Canadian show called Hudson and Rex. So they shoot that
Yeah,
out
you did
in
Hudson and Rex.
Newfoundland.
It's so much
Hell yeah.
fun. It's the best show. I love it so much.
And another example of like, you guys are going to pay me to travel to Newfoundland, which I've never been to.
Yeah,
Sure, man, sign me up. So I got,
yeah.
paid to play a real fun character on a real
Nice,
great show with a real
nice,
great crew.
nice,
And that's going to be coming out in probably February or March. And
nice,
now with the American agent, I have an agent down in Atlanta.
nice.
And we're looking towards the ultimate goal of a Canadian actor, which is to get that O1 visa,
O1
which you,
visa.
sir, got. And massive congratulations. I want to hear more about that
Yeah,
in a
we'll
bit.
talk about it. Yeah, yeah,
Um, and then on the other side of things, I'm the CEO of a production company, and the president, my business partner, Madison Kahn, who is an absolute powerhouse, great actress, and even better producer.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
We had this massive documentary kind of fall into our lap this year, and
Oh
we
wow.
worked on it, from May until now. Now we're finally in post production, and we're gonna have our rough cut in end of January. We're hoping to get her finished by April, May. We've already got distribution in the States and the UK. We've got a great investor backing us to get everything finished. It's really kind of grown our reputation as a film production company. And in 2026, we're going to be moving into focusing on our features and our TV shows. So
Wow.
once again, we get to write and produce and create the things that we want to be in, whether it be acting in, whether it be writing, or whether it be producing. We finally get to steer our own ship, which is
Mm,
huge for any creative and any actor or filmmaker to have the the confidence that people have in us and have the trust and to have a growing reputation in this industry, not just in Toronto, but worldwide, to solidify ourselves as serious filmmakers. That's only going to open up more opportunities and more doors for us. So
mm,
we've got a big year coming up in 2026. We want to get at least two features done, possibly two TV shows as well.
what?
All very different across the board. There's
Wow.
some horror, there's some comedy, there's some found footage, there's some
Cool.
thriller, there's some action. So
Wow.
really picking and choosing what we want to do and what we love to do as creatives and as filmmakers, while at the same time exploring and growing our brand as actors and pushing our acting career, and then even more so on the back burner, still doing our day-to-day jobs and making ends meet in this super expensive city. So juggling a lot, experiencing a lot of news, a lot of firsts, and just enjoying the up and down ride of it. Like
Mm,
you got to be able to smile through the pain sometimes, because I spent the better part of this year, in the red, in debt. And when you're investing in yourself, yeah, when you're investing in yourself and you're waiting for something to hit, it's like, holy cow, I'm
oh yeah,
tired of
yeah,
eating
yeah.
ramen noodles. I'm getting
Yeah, yeah,
tired of
yeah.
eating for $3 a day, but got to do it. Got to at least say that you tried. And something hit for us finally, and we're coming out on top, and
Nice.
we've got a massive year ahead of us and on both sides of the camera. So super, super excited for everything moving forward. And then with the
Nice.
American agent thing, to work on getting that O1 and get me down to working in the States and then get me working abroad, that's another level that I'm going to be pushing towards and pushing
Beautiful.
for, and working my ass off behind the scenes, whether I got to work in front of the camera, behind the camera, or beside the camera. You better believe I'll be there with a smile on my face.
That's beautiful, man. Wow. That's exciting. I love it.
Yeah,
That's so cool,
yeah.
man. I'm so happy for you. And I think it's a good reminder that like, the 2025 thing too is so normal of like the way it started. So similar to me, with the O1 visa application, which I'll go more in depth. I unfortunately don't have enough time to even start to scratch the surface. I will be creating like a live Q&A kind of
Mhm.
thing. Just talk about my like life
Or we'll
experience
have
of
to
it.
meet up for a lunch. We'll have to meet up for a lunch or a
I would
coffee.
love that. I would love
Yeah,
that.
man.
I would love that. That's another good thing. Invite people out for coffee and lunch. That's great.
That I will interject, and I don't mean to take
Go
over
ahead.
your podcast.
Yeah,
That
do.
is something that was big for me in 2025.
Mm,
Now, while I'm a bartender, while I'm an actor, while I'm a very outgoing appearing person, I'm really actually very introverted in the
mm-hmm,
sense that I don't really like big crowds. I don't like really
mm,
big film festivals. I don't like giant groups where there's handshaking and turning and small
mm-hmm.
talk and this and you got to meet this person and that. It becomes so overwhelming and so draining on my social battery that I tried to make 2025 the year where I would reach out, you know, of my own volition to fellow actors, directors, writers, staffers, sparks, producers, anyone who would be willing to sit down with me one on one and have a coffee and just talk. And the network that has grown from that and how I've been able to expand not just my pool of actors, but I need a makeup artist last minute. I had coffee with someone last week. I'll see if they're interested, and sure enough, they're in. So
Nice.
the power, and this is for any actor who's watching this, the power of inviting someone out for a coffee and just giving them an hour of your time and just shooting like we're doing now, just talking is so important and so valuable. It may not be, it may not rear its head for a week, 2 weeks, 2 years,
Yeah.
but at some point, that conversation that you've had just over a simple coffee, there will be a mutual benefit and it will be something
Yes.
beautiful that you did not expect. And I will
Yes.
guarantee that.
So true. So
Mhm.
true. I think it's also this business isn't as much, and it sounds like you have this mentality too. Is not so much how much can I get out of it, but how much can I give. And so when
Absolutely.
you show up to these networking things, like you said, these networking events where it's crazy and there's lots of alcohol and a lot of ego, it's almost like it does you a disservice. Like there's a certain time and place for those kinds of things, but I'm in general too prefer the one-on-one conversations. I prefer these kinds of deep conversations where I get to know the person. And like you said, it might have nothing to do with the industry, but at the end of the day, you had a great chat with a great human being, and you guys both end up with a good sort of moment in your life that you're like, oh, I'm glad I went to brunch or I had
Hmm.
a coffee or hopped on a chat with you on a podcast. And it doesn't have to serve anything other than just having a good chat.
Just connecting with a fellow human. Like what do
Exactly,
you like?
which is
There should be nothing to gain other than an experience with another human. That's like
exactly.
walking. Like I don't want anything from you. I
No.
really don't. You're already giving me your time. That's enough. Let's shoot the shit. Let's
Yeah,
learn.
exactly.
I don't want
Exactly.
anything from you. Knowledge would be great,
Yeah.
and acquiring some insight as
Yeah.
to your thought process. But let's make this as organic as possible. Let's just shoot
Yeah.
the shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think to me, like just to give you the littlest bit of Owen advice is doing exactly what you're doing, which is building relationships. Because when it comes to the O1, one of the pivotal things is just having letters of recommendation, is having people who will go to bat for you. Because that was also one of the insightful things, like certain people that you think that were like a great connection, but they were like kind of maybe not someone that you necessarily had that deep connection with, but you're like, oh, maybe like they'll be helpful on my O1 application because like I'm going to the States or they're in the States or they've done it. So like maybe they're going to help me. Some of them don't, or some of them don't know how, or some of them get scared because it's bureaucratic, it's legal, all that kind of stuff. So it's really important that you connect on that human level because the people that made the biggest difference for me in my O1 application were the people I connected on a deep level, like directors, producers, actors, and sometimes the most surprising people. Like for me, Jen Wexler, the director of The Sacrifice Game, was a huge help with the O1 visa. Um, Randomly Eliza Coop from Future Man, who was one of the series regulars, who when I played
Yeah.
on that thing, it was like my first time doing like a big guest star role. I was just like, I was literally the character. I was like, hey, Eliza, like a super nerdy kid. And she was like, you're cool. Like she could tell, like I was like also like on that spiritual frequency that she's on. And I was like, so cool that she would go to bat for some
Yeah.
dude that she met in Montreal, you know? And
Yeah.
so you want to connect with those kinds of people, and it's not just O1 advice, it's like life advice that like I think we're getting from this whole conversation
Yeah.
together is like I The one piece of advice that I could leave you on, because I do have to head out, is you already are going to have it. And I'm sure you know this. Just keep sustaining that, because just to see how your career has, because I feel like your career kind of lifted off at the same time as like I was becoming aware of you two, because we go to the same barber. Shout out Andre Guerrero, best barber
The
in
best.
Toronto.
The
Uh,
best.
but the best. And it's already happened. So again, sending you your advice back to you. This moment too shall pass, and be grateful for this moment. The excitement of like, will it, won't it? Like, it's already happened, man. Like, you're already the hero of your 6-year-old self, and you're a hero in my eyes to so many others, and a source of inspiration. So if you need me to write you a letter of intent, I'll be there. A letter of
We've
support,
got
help
this
you
on
with
record
this.
now, so don't be surprised if in a bit I'm like, hey
Please.
man.
No, but we're gonna go for coffee. We're gonna go for lunch. We're gonna make this happen for you this year. This is exciting. You're on a roll, and I'm so grateful that you came on to this podcast. But before we go, I do this usual thing, as I told you before. But if you, viewer, listener, have any questions for John, Thomas Gauthier, or myself, please leave them in the comments. We'll respond to as many, if not all, of the comments, so that we can just really continue the conversation. You want to know more about, John's roles, or his process, or, his life advice, or want to take him out for lunch or coffee. He's here. Reach out. This is your sign from the universe. Take a chance on yourself, because, people seem so inaccessible, but they are, especially if they're artists, especially if they give that energy. And I knew I would have this kind of great conversation with you. So again, thank you so much. It was amazing, Johnny. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And scene. And that's how I end the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, man. It was a lot of fun. I knew we were gonna connect, so it's so good to finally have a conversation with you. And
Thanks, man.
I encourage anyone watching to connect not just with Laurent, but to connect with myself and to connect with each other. Particularly, if you're an artist, not even as an actor, but if anything that you do that you love to do and that you love to create, be aware that connection is what keeps us all going, and it's so important to support each other in anything that we do. And don't be afraid to reach out and connect, because anyone who is a true artist will have nothing but support for you. And we're always looking to expand the family. Good vibes attract good vibes, and good energy recognizes good energy, man. And I'm a firm believer in that.
I love that. Even better, way better way to end than and scene.